Well, U.S. President Donald Trump has departed for his high-stakes three-day visit to China.
And this as he seeks to ramp up trade despite potential friction over Taiwan and Iran. Leaving Washington on Tuesday, Trump said that he expected a long talk with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping about Iran.
Well, I think, number one, we're going to have a long talk about it. I think he's been relatively good, to be honest with you. You look at the blockade, no problem. They get a lot of their oil from that area. We've had no problem, and he's been a friend of mine. He's been somebody that we get along with.
Now, when asked if he needs the Chinese president to help with Iran, Trump said that he doesn't think so, going on to claim that they will win the war one way or the other.
We'll win it one way or the other. We'll win it peacefully or otherwise. Their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, every single element of their war machine is gone.
Well, this trip, the first since Trump visited Beijing in 2017, will involve high-stakes talks with Xi Jinping on Thursday and Friday during a packed itinerary that includes a state banquet and tea reception.
While trade ties between Beijing and Washington have been fraught in recent years, the two sides are currently maintaining a one-year truce in their tariff war reached at Trump and Xi's last meeting in South Korea in October.
Trump is being accompanied in China by a large group of top U.S. business executives, including Tesla's Elon Musk and Apple's Tim Cook. Among other things that are expected to come up for discussion include Taiwan. On Monday, Trump said he would speak to Xi Jinping about U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. It marked a departure from historic U.S. insistence that it will not consult Beijing on its support to the island.
Trump is accompanied by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, White House Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair, among others, aboard Air Force One. White House says that the First Lady Melania Trump is not accompanying Donald Trump to China during this visit.
And to discuss more, we are now being joined by Edward P. Joseph from Washington, D.C. He is a senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies and foreign policy analyst. Mr. Joseph, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks so much for making time. Let's quickly start off with the backdrop to this meet. 9 years, there has not been a U.S. president who's visited China. The ties nosedived during Biden's administration, the spy balloons that were found, Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan. Then, of course, the Taiwan Strait, which remains a sticking point that is going to be up for discussion. California mayor resigning and ready to plead guilty for being an illegal agent for the Chinese government. That coming a day before this meet is now going to happen. And then there is the Iran war, which is most recent, where China does get hurt. Half of China's crude oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, which remains in a deadlock even now. Putting all of this in the backdrop, how do you see these talks progressing?
First, good to be with you as well. And I think that the key contrast here, in addition to all those important elements that you cited, particularly the difficulties of the U.S.-Chinese relationship under the Biden era, is we have a sharp change from President Trump's first administration. We have a sharp change in his posture and his attitude. There was a very aggressive approach from President Trump towards China. There was a strong element of identifying China as an adversary to the United States. And in fact, that was very influential and carried over into the Biden administration, influencing that posture as well that President Biden took towards Beijing. But in his second term now, President Trump has backed off that. And he has this clear aspiration to have a partnership relationship with China and to emphasize his personal connection, as you heard in the report that you showed earlier, with President Xi Jinping. So that's really the odd dynamic here, that we have this sharp 180-degree change in posture from the first administration of President Trump towards the second. Of course, President Trump did hike tariffs, but there was a meeting between the two leaders in South Korea, at which they last fall agreed on a deal. Basically, China agreed to give the U.S. access to these rare earth materials, and President Trump reduced the tariffs, so that we had already the basis of a breakthrough in that key dispute on tariffs. But in this meeting, of course, we would be talking about all the standard issues, trade, tariffs, cybersecurity, potential nuclear weapons, Taiwan. We would be talking about all of those issues, except, as you correctly noted, the war in Iran will be overshadowing these talks, and that will be a primary question. Despite what you heard there from President Trump, this will be a primary question between the.
And given the entourage that's traveling with Trump, the CEOs going, there is clear intent on locking in some deals, which Trump, anyways, specializes in. Disha.
Absolutely, and Mr.
Yes,
Joseph,
you're absolutely right about that. Please.
Right, and now, of course, coming to the specifics, as you've just mentioned, the Iran war is going to overshadow a lot of the other issues and the agendas which are on the table now. We're just curious to know, how do you think the talks are going to feature in this particular summit? Because we know that China, it has deep strategic ties with Iran. And do you think that now, given the equation and the backdrop that Shivan was just mentioning, is Xi entering the summit with more leverage than Trump anticipated, perhaps?
That is a great question, and the answer to it is not really clear. So Beijing would like to approach this as if it has more leverage than the United States because of the predicament the United States faces with Iran, and in particular on this question of the Strait of Hormuz. But since Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz, President Trump has instituted a blockade of the strait, which has proven to be militarily successful and effective. And that means it creates very strong difficulties for China, which, as you also correctly noted, depends on the strait for much of its oil. And contrary to some early reporting that suggested, well, the Chinese have a lot of strategic reserve of oil and they can get through this and weather this difficulty, in fact, the blockage in the strait is inflicting significant pain on key Chinese industries. And so we know Beijing wants this matter resolved, wants the Strait of Hormuz open. And in fact, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi recently just last week, met with the Iranian Foreign Minister. And the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi stated very clearly, China wants to see the Strait of Hormuz opened. So the dynamics will be very interesting there. Obviously, this will be a private meeting and conversation between Presidents Trump and Xi Jinping, and they will, I believe, be talking in very concrete terms about what it will take to get a breakthrough on the strait and a breakthrough as well on Iran's nuclear program there in Iran. And I think, again, contrary to what President Trump was saying, he will be looking to Beijing to add to the pressure on Tehran to come to a deal. Please.
Mr. Joseph, regarding Taiwan, if I could get your assessment on what China would be expecting from the U.S. President. Wang Yi, he said, this was on a recent call with the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, that Taiwan was the biggest risk in China-U.S. relations. And the Chinese foreign minister called on the U.S. to open up new space for China-U.S. cooperation. Do you feel that space for cooperation can only start once there is some resolve on the Taiwan issue, or is it too early to resolve something like Taiwan, which is where China gets belligerent if you touch Taiwan? It's too little a time period for Taiwan to get resolved. Where do you feel the gates will open for conversation? Please, go ahead.
I think it's the latter. I don't expect some major change in the U.S. posture on Taiwan, regardless of what Beijing wants. Although with President Trump, of course, this is always a wild card. You never know with President Trump. He, as we say, he can shoot from the hip. But China would like the U.S. to evolve from its current position, which says that it does not support independence Taiwan, and Beijing would like the United States to say that it opposes independence for Taiwan. Most U.S. presidents would not entertain that change. With President Trump, you never know. If he thinks that China is giving him some other concession in another sphere, we don't know. He can say, well, who cares? It's just some words. But in principle, I do not expect some sharp, dramatic change in the U.S. posture towards Taiwan, with the caveat that with President Trump, we can never be sure. Please.
I totally take your point. Mr. Joseph, thanks so much for making time for us. Always a pleasure speaking with you. There will be more to discuss as this summit gets on board. That's Edward P. Joseph joining us.